Good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming out today. For really, it was one of the great days, not only for Naog Park, but really for the city of Scranton. This is a project that we started 3.5 years ago, and it really came about from reading an article in the U.S. Mayor's magazine about handicap accessible tree houses, and about a company called Forever Young Tree Houses located in Burlington, Vermont. I read the story. I called Bill Allen. Where's Bill? Right there. Stand up, you two. Bill and Irick. But I called Bill Allen. I said, I'm the mayor of Scranton, Pennsylvania, and I read this article about your tree houses. I'm going to come up next week and see one of your tree houses. Took me up. We saw the tree house in Burlington, Vermont. It was beautiful. And I said, I have a place that is unbelievable that once you build it, it'll be your signature piece. And then we had them come down. Irick came down and looked at the site, and over a period of time, we looked at the site and realized how was this going to work, what it was going to cost, and then challenges for us to make it work. And over the last 2.5 years, when we finally came to what the project was going to be about, we realized we had to raise the money and we had to make it happen. So there's a couple major sponsors I want to talk about who stepped up with some big time donations for us. And there's a long list of sponsors who have really stepped up and made a difference. But I want to highlight, first of all, our friends at Walmart, who will be your escorts when we cut the ribbon. A big round of applause for them. I want to thank the great people at Mohegan Sun, who came up with a major contribution. And I also want to thank Keystone Landfill, who's always been, whether it's this project or any project at Naog Park, tremendous sponsors for this project, and the University of Scranton, who provided a house for the people of Forever Young to live at for the last 2 months for free. And that was a great, great asset for us. So for them, if you give them all a round of applause, I appreciate it. Now I'm going to read through a laundry list, but it's important because at moments like this, you got to thank everybody. And once the ribbon's cut here, we all go back to our lives. But I want people to know at this point in time in history, these were the companies that stepped up for us and made this project a reality. Eastern Roofing, this beautiful roof that you see on what we call the mothership, was donated by Eastern Roofing and John Basilega. Outstanding. I mean, that roof alone probably would have cost us $10,000 to $15,000. They left here last night at 6 o'clock to get it done. They just stepped up and made a big difference. Kane is Able Trucking. The design work for this whole project, a grant from Kane Trucking, $25,000. 2.5 years ago, when this was just a dream, I went to them and I said, I'm thinking of doing this, but I need somebody to pay for the drawings. Gene Kane, Dick Kane, Chris Kane, they all said, no problem, here's the check. Never asked a question. A silent gift, you never see it, you'll never hear about it, which is the way the Canes work. They always work below the radar, but their footprints and handprints and fingerprints are all over the city and county, and it's the type of thing that we're most proud of. A young woman who we honored last night, Valerie Burke, transplant to the city of Scranton, lives in the Hill section, professional woman. She challenged her corporation. She gave a $2,000 gift and challenged her corporation to match it 3 times. So it ended up being an $8,000 gift. One person asking her employer to make a difference. And that's what makes a difference in this project. Main Street Tent and Rentals, Sterners, Kathy Gavin. What can you say about Kathy? If she isn't donating half her profits to more functions along this valley, no one else is. Powell Rentals, Northeast Center for Independent Living. Give these people a round of applause. It is the Danny Loftus will tell you, when I had the idea for this, I needed a vehicle to get our first donations through. We didn't have a 501c3 set up at the time. We went to them. They made a big, big difference. They became our partner. They became the face for this project. And they were very important to our success. And we're very happy to have them as our partner on this project. The Parks and Recreation Department for the city, and I think of my two cabinet members who are my partners on this, Jeff Brazil, who is now my directors, and Bobby Scopoletti. To both of them, please give a round of applause. Russo Construction, Scartelli Construction, and most importantly, the newest partner who is really going to carry not only this project, but the park for decades to come, the Naog Park Conservancy. This is a 501c3 that we set up because my goal for this park isn't that we're just going to improve it, that we'll always maintain it. And the gifts that we received have been gifts to the Naog Park Conservancy because the Conservancy is built on the premise and the idea of the Central Park Conservancy. Years from now, the money that will be used to maintain this park will come from the Conservancy, will not come from the city budget, will not be dependent on whatever the financial straits are of the city at that time. This park will always be beautiful, and it will never fall into the disrepair that it had fallen into because the city just didn't have the money. It will always be in great shape. I sit on that board. As long as I'm alive, this park will always be maintained, will always be in great shape, and the new partner will be the Naog Park Conservancy. Please give them a round of applause, please. And tomorrow, we're going to have our first race at the park. It'll be the Gorge Run. We actually have had a race the last 3 years, but this year's the first year we'll actually be going by the gorge. We'll be running over a covered bridge. And it's a symbol of what I want to do. Is my goal is to have the 5K races. This park, every weekend, has a 5K race or walk. But we leave the park sometimes. We go on Arthur Avenue and Colfax Avenue. From now on, I want the races always to be inside the park. For safety reasons, but more importantly, to celebrate the park. And that's tomorrow will be the first race for that. And I want to ask anybody, if you have time, we need volunteers for people to be along the course. If you want to volunteer, please come by tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. The race starts at 10, but we'll need volunteers at 8, and we're really asking people to step up. If they can, we appreciate it. All right. I told you about how we got here, everybody who helped us out. Before I go on, Jeff, have I missed anybody?
The guys who actually built it. I mean, without them, they stepped up to the plate.
Absolutely. Two guys. Yeah, the Forever Young Treehouse people, who these two gentlemen represent. Who's here from Forever Young who worked on it? I see Nadia. Who else? Cowboy. Anybody else? I want you to walk out here in the front, okay? This is your last time before you go on to other projects. Please stand out here. Red Hot Welding. I want you out here. Jimmy Straka. Where's Straka? These people have been here on this site for more than 8 weeks. And they've worked through some rainstorms, through some changes in design, as we do on every construction project, and they made it happen. And they also had to deal with me, which is not a good thing when I'm under pressure because I really am not interested in explanations. I just really want it done, so that's it. They have done an outstanding job. It's easy to stand here now and look at this beautiful piece of work. But it wasn't easy 4 weeks ago and 6 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or 10 days ago when we're making changes and we're under pressure. These guys delivered. They're now going to go out back, especially the people from Vermont. They're going to another place to build another treehouse. Some of them are going to Bolivia or anywhere else in the world. But for this moment in time, they're here. They're part of us, and they made this happen. And for that, we should always be thankful because your work will be here forever. You leave, but you're the ones who built it. And really, this is a testimony to your craftsmanship, to your belief and your vision and what you want to do. It isn't just a treehouse. It's for a treehouse for those who don't have the experience to be able to see things they never had to see before. As I had an interview before, I said, our mayor, when he was mayor, couldn't see the gorge. Last night was the first time he saw the gorge before he went away to Vietnam. You got to remember that. That's what this is. That's what this is about. And this draws me into the final piece of the puzzle, which is this treehouse says something about who we are as people. Do we want to invest our money into something that provides access, opportunity, and vision to those who are restricted by barriers, physical barriers. It says something about who we are as citizens, not just Scrantonians, but people from Lackawanna County, because the gifts we receive aren't just from people from Scranton. They're from people who buy into the idea of what Naog Park is. Naog Park, when I started renovating this place 5 years ago, I said it wasn't just a park. It was symbolic of the change and the Renaissance. We've made the change because you don't get listed in Money Magazine as the fourth hottest real estate market in the country if you aren't well on your way. But when you're there, when you're successful, and when you had the power and you got the opportunity, what did you do with it? When you had the chance, what did you do with it? What we've done with it, we've built a treehouse for those who had obstacles in their life. And that defines us. And for us, we can't be prouder, we shouldn't be more prouder than we are of ourselves today. Because we have defined us. We have spent the money. We have gotten the volunteers. We have seen people come out and give of themselves, ask of their employers, ask of their friends to make a difference. That's who Scranton is today. We are a city that thinks for others, that thinks of others' well-being, but more importantly, we challenge our neighbors. We challenge our friends. Whether it's Valerie Burke challenging her employer and saying, I want you to triple my gift. Whether it's Jim Davis going down to Bentonville, Arkansas and saying, I need you to give $50,000 for a treehouse in Scranton, Pennsylvania, because I believe in it. It was his salesmanship that made it work. Or whether it's Louis de Naples or Mohegan Sun stepping up saying, I think this is a worthy project. You know, it's easy for me to do it. I'm the mayor. It's easy for the Center of Independent Living. This is their mission. But for these other people to stand up and say, I want to make a difference, why would a guy like John Basilega, who's got his own business, saying, I'm going to give you a $15,000 roof and give you my men? They believe. We believe. And that's what our city is today, and that's what our community is today. I want to bring up two guys who are going to introduce a man who I have tremendous admiration for, who I look to, because when I think I'm having a tough day and I got obstacles, I think of Dave Wenzel, who comes back from Vietnam, who says, you know what, I can either just fade into the woodwork, or I'm going to be part of the change of my city, and I'm going to be the representative of my city and decide to run for mayor. And after I serve for mayor, not walk away, but continue to be on boards, continue to be a face for our community, continue to actually challenge all of us to say, you know what, you think you got it tough? I'm up every day. I'm out selling my city. I believe in my city. You got to do it too. You know, character is defined on what you do, on how you act when nobody's looking. Dave Wenzel every day gets up, goes to work, and talks about our city, and he really doesn't care who's watching him or who's paying attention. But he does care about Scranton, and he does care about Northeastern Pennsylvania, and he does realize the impact he has on other people, because people are watching. People are watching him, how he acts. And when he has pride, and when he has determination, and when he has what we have here, which is energy, persistence, conquers all, we realize we can do the same thing. So Joe Ricardo, Judge Mundley, please come up and introduce your friend. Come on over here, Sylvia.
I want to thank Mayor Doherty for giving me the opportunity to speak and say a few things about my good friend Dave Wenzel. I'm privileged to have as one of my best friends, one of my heroes, Mayor Wenzel, and I just very briefly want to share a quick story. About 4 years ago, Janet Wenzel, Dave's wife, and Janet has to be mentioned. Without a Janet Wenzel, there would not be a Mayor Dave Wenzel, and I could attest to her sacrifices and her care. She asked me about 4 years ago to go to Valley Forge with Dave. It was Valley Forge. At the time, it was the Valley Forge Military Hospital. It's now the Valley Forge Christian Academy. And it's where Dave did a year of rehab after suffering the injuries he did in Vietnam. And it was the 30th year reunion with all the other amputees on the floor that Dave was, the other Vietnam veterans who had lost limbs, had been injured. And I spent a weekend with Dave, and with him and the other veterans, men from all over the country, the nurses who took care of them, the doctors who took care of them. And I'll never forget the day we were leaving. and I never told Dave this, I was cornered by a group of the veterans and who said to me, do you realize the treasure and the resource that you have in the city of Scranton? Do you realize what this man not only means to your city, but means to veterans all across the country? How he has inspired every other veteran, every other wounded veteran to go on with their lives, to make something of their lives, to achieve. And his nurse said to me, do you realize what an inspiration he is? You need to go back to Scranton and tell everybody. And when I came back to the city, I had a discussion with Mayor Doherty, and I asked him about naming something after Mayor Wenzel. And at first, I didn't know how Mayor Doherty would receive me, because being from the opposite political party. Let me tell you something. Mayor Doherty immediately latched onto the idea and said, we have to do something. And then about a year ago, he mentioned the treehouse to me. And I didn't know how I felt about a treehouse named for Dave Wenzel. I'm thinking, but having seen it now and the first time last night being here for the reception, I think it's a wonderful tribute. I hope that the children who come here, maybe the ones that are facing physical or mental handicaps, will be inspired by the story of David Wenzel. So right now I'm going to turn it over to Judge Munley, who's going to introduce Mayor Wenzel.
Thank you, Joe. And thank you, Mayor Doherty and Representative Smith and Joe and David Wenzel. I came up here today unprepared because I told one of my clerks, Stacy Harris, was here. I said, I'm not going to say anything today, but I have to be there for David Wenzel, and I'll tell you why. And Joe Ricardo said to me, we want you to say something on behalf of David Wenzel, and maybe we'll even have you introduce him. And I want to thank you for that, Joe, because I do want to say something about David Wenzel. I was just going to be here to give him a kiss on the forehead and say, thanks for being who you are. But let me tell you something about David Wenzel. Dave and I have been friends. Actually, I introduced Joe Ricardo to Dave Wenzel 10 or 15 years ago, whenever it was. Dave and I have been friends for over 30 years. We served in Vietnam at the same time, not together, but we served at the same time. And Dave came back, he was wounded. We got to be good friends. We palled around together. Actually, we've been palling around together for 30 some years. And even as you said, Joe, we're in opposite parties. I'm a Democrat, he's a Republican, but I'll tell you about that in a second. So what happened was, when Dave was elected mayor, we used to go to the movies. I'll tell you a funny story, but we used to go to the movies together. And I used to go up and pick him up, and we'd go to a movie, and we'd do it once every couple of weeks because he was busy. I was busy as a practicing lawyer. And one day I went up there to pick him up, and I hit one of the police cars with my car. And I didn't know what the heck to do, so I figured I'll go and tell the mayor, he'll get me out of it. So after I hit the police car, it was in the alleyway. You know that alleyway behind City Hall? I was in a hurry to get there to pick him up, and I hit one of the police cars. Not much damage. I went in and told Dave, I said, Mayor, I just hit one of the police cars. What should I do? He said, it's your problem. Go and tell him. So I went and told them, and they let me go. It wasn't too much damage. But we've been together for 30-some years, Dave and I. And I want to say this, and I'm not going to waste too much time, but when I ran for judge, again, Joe Ricardo said opposite ends of the party. He's a Republican. I'm a Democrat. I spoke to my staff, Joe Gilhooly. I don't see him here, but I spoke to my staff, Joe Ricardo, and I said I'm going to ask David Wenzel if he'll help me, even though we're on different sides of the party. We're different members. He's a Republican. I'm a Democrat. Joe Ricardo actually went to David Wenzel, and David Wenzel said absolutely, and he was on the executive committee then for the Republican Party. He was removed from the executive committee. I'm sorry about that, Dave. But you're lucky I won, because if I lost, you'd be finished. But the point is, that's the type of guy Dave Wenzel is. But I want to say one more thing about Dave. There's 5 people in my life, and I'm getting up there in age now. There's 5 people in my life that influenced my life more than anybody else in the world. 2 of whom are my mother and father, who passed away, and one is David Wenzel. And I'm so proud to say that David Wenzel is one of the 5 most influential people that I ever met in my life. And Dave, I don't think I ever told you that, Dave. I know I told Joe Ricardo that. That's what I think of you, Dave Wenzel. You are you're unassuming. He doesn't want to be out front. There's so many times that I got interviewed on different issues, being a veteran, and I said to Dave, why don't you be part of this? No, you do it. Don't worry about me. That's the type guy he is. And just the fact that all of you people are here to pay tribute to him and this beautiful facility, and I have to thank Mayor Doherty for doing this for Dave and naming this after him. Just the fact that you're all here shows me what you think of Dave Wenzel. And Dave, I won't hesitate to tell you, I love you very much, and I always will. And thank you for coming. And I'm going to introduce one of my favorite people in the whole world, David Wenzel.
Tommy, Joe, thank you very much for those kind remarks and everything, and I'll get back to you. I'll be picking up the tab for lunch this afternoon. You know, the older people will get the reference I'm going to make right now, but there used to be a program on television back in the 1950s called Queen for a Day. Well, that's the way I feel like right now as far as all these nice words that people have been saying. I got a telephone call from Mayor Doherty just about a month ago, and he asked me, he says, I'd like to name the treehouse after you. Now, actually, I was holding out for a street, but what are you going to do? I said, sure. What I want to say is that from day one, Mayor Doherty looked on this project as something for the disability community here in Scranton. Usually when we build anything in the city of Scranton and we make it accessible, it's kind of like an afterthought. We'll say, well, okay, we'll put in a ramp to make it accessible for people to be able to get around. But from day one, the mayor looked on this as a project which was going to be mainly for our young people who had problems getting around, and they would be able to see this gorge down there, as he said, that I hadn't seen since I left for Vietnam when I was 25 years old. And I used to come up here all the time with my father. Used to go swimming in the pools and everything. I looked over all these different areas right here and saw Hanlon's Grove and said, wouldn't that be great to have a name in a park like this? And to actually have that happen today, I start getting choked up, guys, to tell you the truth. But I want to commend the mayor. He mentioned about all the people who contributed to the treehouse, and you know these things just don't happen. He put his reputation on the line. He put his administration on the line as far as contacting all these people and getting them to contribute. And I want to pay tribute to you, Mayor Doherty, for the magnificent job you've done in doing this. When we talk about doing something for the disabled, I remember going back to my administration, and we were talking about the curb cuts in downtown Scranton. And I'm not going to mention any names, but he was a member of city council. And he said, why do we need curb cuts in downtown? There aren't any disabled people. I don't see any disabled people in downtown. I said, that's the reason why we don't have anybody down there. We don't have the curb cuts for them to come down. It makes it too difficult for them to get around. Well, it's the same thing with this now, too. It makes us all aware that we do have people in our community who can contribute, who want to contribute. And so we should make places like this available for them, as well as in the workplace and all that. So, Mayor, I want to thank you very much. And before, these guys stole all of the words that I had, so I think the best thing we want to do now is to cut this ribbon and allow everyone to get down there and see what this treehouse looks like. You're going to really be blown away by the view, okay? So thank everyone for coming out. Tell your friends and neighbors about it. Bring people from out of town. Tell them about it, because this is something that is really spectacular that I think they would like to see. So thank you all for coming, and thank you, Mayor, again.
Okay, Mayor. 1, 2, 3, right? Okay, right. 1, 2, 3. There you go, from the way down. Okay. Mike, you want to come up and then the one. There isn't. It's like a rock concert. Good job. Thank you.
And you really have to have walking shoes. Oh, I know. It is tough. Yeah. 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 And it's rocky. Yeah. This is absolutely. Oh, what a place to come. Just come and please knock it out.
Yeah, you're the ones that are way in the cut.
I'm here with Keith Williams at the right after the ribbon cutting ceremony, actually, of the Dave Wenzel Treehouse at Naog Park. And Keith, I know your organization was an integral part of the financing and the actual moving of this project. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, Joy. What we were able to do as the Center for Independent Living is, since we're legally a nonprofit organization, a 501c3, we were able to handle the donations. So in other words, an individual or a corporation in the area could make out a check to the Center for Independent Living for X amount of dollars, and then in turn, we were able to collect those funds and then turn that over in a lump sum to the city to finance the treehouse project. So it's been great. It's been a win-win situation all the way around.
And would you just like to tell us a little about the accessibility of this treehouse? This is something I think that's fairly unique, actually in the country, not only this area.
It is. It is. My understanding is it's only the 18th accessible treehouse in the country, and Forever Young builds one in every state. And in my mind, as a person with a disability and an advocate, the thing that I'm most impressed about is it's not an issue of a park having a treehouse that's just open to the public and then one set aside just for people with disabilities. It's the only treehouse. So in other words, kids in the community with and without disabilities will be enjoying the same treehouse. So that makes for true total integration, which is the way it should be.
And I think that's a good point. This treehouse is for the entire citizenry, able-bodied and disabled at the same time, equal access. And Keith, thank you for your time. We appreciate it, and hope to see you here again real soon.
Thank you. Thank you, especially now that we're getting into the nice weather. I plan on coming up here soon. It's a wonderful day for people in the city of Scranton, Lackawanna County.
Hi, this is Joe Gilroy again at the grand opening of the ribbon-cutting ceremony of the Dave Wenzel Treehouse here at Naog Park in Scranton. And I'm here with Mayor Doherty, a driving force behind this. And Mayor, I heard somebody say it's a home run.
It is a home run because not only is it brings the gorge and the park's beauty from a totally different perspective, over 100 feet above the gorge, but it says something about who we are as a community, that we would think of others who are faced with challenges and disabilities, to give them the same vantage point, to give them the same view that everybody else takes for granted. And that's what I wanted to do, because I wanted our city to be defined as a city that cares about everybody and provides access and opportunity for everyone. That's what this treehouse symbolizes. Not only is it a great venue, and not only is it a four-season treehouse, more importantly, it defines us as a community that we care and that we're willing to put our dollars for the betterment of everybody else.
Well, and you know, I was walking down the accessible ramp here just a little while ago, and I heard a lady make a comment just passing by. She wasn't actually speaking to me. She said, walking in, "This is another reason to love Scranton."
Well, we're doing so well as a community. You look at right now, we have the fourth fastest real estate market in the country by Money Magazine is the city of Scranton. We have the lowest crime rate in the state of Pennsylvania. We have a tremendous amount of economic development taking place in our downtown and our neighborhoods. As I said before in our talk, when you had the power, when things were going well, what did you do with that? What we did with it, we invested back in our community. We invested and created opportunities for those who necessarily don't have those opportunities, and we define ourselves for the next level. You never stop moving. You never stop pushing yourselves, and this is an example that we're willing to push ourselves farther, and this now raises the bar because now we have to go above this.
Good. And by the way, this is a real tree. One last thing, Mayor. I know you're a busy man, but I couldn't help but notice the quote by Benjamin Franklin over the entrance. Would you tell us and our viewers a little bit about that?
Well, I think it really defines Dave Wenzel, and it defines us. Do you have perseverance? Do you have courage and persistence, willing to push? You have to be willing to push because life does not stop, and there are no finite ends. There are only opportunities. This treehouse we started 3.5 years ago. Along the way, there have been a lot of reasons not to build it, whether it's financial, whether people thought, what are you, crazy? Or there are people thinking, why do you invest your money into helping a small segment of your population? Why do you do it? Because it defines yourself. And you need perseverance, you need courage, and you need enthusiasm to define yourself. And that's what that sign says, and that's what that quote says, and it's by one of our founders, Benjamin Franklin.
And by the way, this is just such a magnificent facility, and I want to thank you for the time. We're going to try to talk to some other people around here to get their take on this new beginning or this continued renaissance in the city of Scranton. Thank you, Mayor, for your time.
Thanks a lot. I'm glad you're coming up here to show off what we think will be probably the newest attraction and the #1 attraction at Nayoak Park.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm here with the star of the show, Mayor. Well, you're a big shot now, Dave. Mayor David Wenzel. By the way, this is more fun than being at a funeral because you hear all these good accolades and you can still listen to them.
I got a pretty good idea what it's going to be like, my eulogy so far.
But seriously, what do you think of this magnificent facility, and how do you feel about it being named after you?
Well, I'll tell you what. When I first heard of it, it was going to be a tree house. I thought it was going to be a little rinky-dinky type operation, but boy, this is really terrific. It's a world-class attraction that people can come to and actually look down into this gorge and see this beautiful sight down here. And especially I'm looking forward to the changing of the colors as far as the trees are concerned. The fact that it's named after me, I faxed some of those things to my former mates from high school and all that, who used to come up here all the time with us and everything. But it's a really thrill. It's to have something like this. I know it's going to be here for a long time. It's going to outlast me by a long time also, and that I feel very humbled by it, to tell you the truth. And I really, I really don't deserve it, but I'll accept it.
Well, apparently a lot of people here think you do deserve it because we had a pretty good crowd at the ribbon cutting, which you did a fine job at, by the way, with it. You were under a lot of pressure there with that scissors.
Oh, yeah.
But one other thing, I know your wife Janet had a prior commitment today, but she was here last night. Now, does this change anything at home? I mean, a little extra meals, or do you have to do the cooking now, or now that you're this big shot with the treehouse named after you?
My wife is my equalizer. In other words, everything that good happens to me outside the house, she has to bring me down a little bit in order to keep my feet on the ground, so to speak.
Well, welcome to the club.
That's right. And but she was really thrilled when she saw this last night. And she has some ideas. She is at the Children's Library, and I think she'd like to have some programs here about, do some readings with children and everything. It'd be a terrific setting. And there's this whole series called the Treehouse series, which I think it would fit right into the whole thing. Yes.
Well, another example of this new treasure in the city of Scranton at Nayoak Park here, and we encourage everybody to come and visit. I was talking to Keith Williams a little bit earlier, and what's unique about this, it's for the disabled and the able-bodied that they can share it together and have equal access. And one last thing, I know you're very aware, you talked about it in your speech a little bit, of ADA. And for some of the viewers out there who aren't quite familiar with it, I know we could talk for hours on it, but let's try to do it in 30 seconds or less about ADA, because it is important.
Well, the Americans with Disabilities Act, passed in 1991 by the federal government, was probably the most important piece of social legislation, except for probably going back to the Voting Rights Act of 1964. And what it did is it said that you couldn't discriminate against people who had handicaps. And that's why we have these parking spaces out in front of the restaurants and public facilities, and automatic doors that open up. and it has brought the disabled community back into the mainstream. We have to do that these days. We have to utilize everybody to be able to get the most out of everybody. We can't have people sitting along the sidelines anymore.
And with this facility, I'm sure they won't, and young and old can enjoy it as well. David, thank you for taking the time. I know there's a lot of people who want to wish you well, and we appreciate you stopping by to talk to us.
Thank you, Jim.
Well, we're working our way out of the treehouse now, back up to the roadway at Naog, and I'm here with actually two of the builders and designers of the Dave Wenzel treehouse, Bill and Irek. It is correct? Irek. I knew I'd flubbed that, but I did okay. Tell us, what was your part in this project?
I was the designer and the lead builder on the job.
And have you ever been to Scranton before?
I have. A family had a place in the Poconos when I was growing up, and we used to pass through Scranton all the time, about once a year.
Well, then you're almost a native here. Now you're going to have to come back more often to see how the treehouse is doing. And Bill.
Well, I'm the co-founder and the executive director of the company.
And the name of the company again?
Forever Young Tree Houses, and we're out of Burlington, Vermont.
Burlington, Vermont, and I believe that's a nonprofit.
Yes, we are. We're a 501c nonprofit, and our mission is, putting kids in trees. I mean, that's it. All we do is build handicap accessible tree houses.
Well, you put a lot of kids and a lot of adults, from what I'm seeing today, in trees.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your staff. I know when I was here last night, I saw a lot of young men and women moving around, doing different things, getting ready and so forth. Are they from all over the country, or from Vermont, or where?
Well, it's a lot of them have called Vermont home now, but they're from all over the country. I mean, they've kind of ended up in Vermont because it's Vermont's the sort of place where you might end up working for a company that builds handicap accessible tree houses, I think. But just an amazing crew. I mean, I don't. My skill's not building. I had the idea. I love tree houses, and I knew that a kid in a wheelchair should be in one. But the craftsmanship and the design and the look of it is all this crew of just amazing builders. They're builders that have sort of they're kind of throwbacks, because there's just not a lot of people that could do all this.
Well, you're right. I'm sorry.
I mean, nowadays, building skills aren't. It takes a special talent to be able to pull this off.
Well, I can see that, and you designed it, and I'm a layman at this. I'm actually I teach at a local college here in Scranton, but I never met treehouse builders before that weren't under 8 or 10 years old. So it's quite the industry and quite the project you did. Did you run into any obstacles in the design phase because of the location here?
Yeah, it's a fantastic site. It's absolutely beautiful. The gorge, the elevation, how quickly you're very high in the air, but that presents its challenges. You're much higher off the ground, and it involves some very serious engineering and design work to make the structure work and be safe as well as beautiful. To combine those two.
Well, on behalf of the entire city and the population of the county in northeastern Pennsylvania, I'd like to say, gentlemen, it was a job well done, and it'll be here for years to come, for generations to enjoy because of your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm here once again with a familiar face to viewers of Channel 61, my partner and former colleague, Joe Ricardo. Joe, it's good to have you back. We've been looking for you.
Hey, Joe, it's great to be here. And as I said in my remarks during the ceremony, what a tribute to David Wenzel. Dave I'm privileged to have as one of my best friends, also one of the heroes that I look up to, Dave Wenzel. And his life has been an inspiration, especially to people who are challenged by any physical, emotional, mental obstacle or handicap, and the way he's overcome his disabilities. This is just a wonderful facility. What a tribute to what Dave Wenzel has done for the city. What a tribute, recognizing his accomplishments and what he means nationwide. As I said in my remarks earlier, he is respected so much nationally. He's a hero to veterans. He's a hero to America. He addressed the 2000 Republican Convention. He's regularly on the national media, and he's just respected. So what a way to honor his accomplishments. I could think of no better way to do it. And again, when Mayor Doherty said to me a treehouse, I thought, boy, I don't know. But when you look at the majesty of this facility, you realize it's worthy of the name David Wenzel. So it's just great to be here.
Yeah. It is quite the facility, and I encourage all viewers to come to Naog Park and experience it for yourself. Because to say it's a treehouse is kind of an understatement, Joe. I think you had mentioned the engineering and the design and what an honor it is to have under Dave Wenzel. But let me just say this one thing, because I know we're getting short on time. I had talked to David earlier today and about his notoriety and the honor of having it named after him. And would this ground him when he got home? And he went into detail a little bit about his wife, Janet, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, but she was here yesterday. But, what a wonderful lady Janet Wenzel is.
Yeah, Janet Wenzel. First of all, I said this before, there would not have been a Mayor David Wenzel without Janet Wenzel. And this is also a tribute to her accomplishments. And unfortunately, Janet couldn't be here today, but she's very much here in spirit. And she's, at McDade Park working with children today. She's all about the community. And finally, regarding this facility, I would encourage all Scrantonians not only to come up, but in addition to children, this is here primarily for children. I could see a lot of office parties. I could see a lot of formal ceremonies, and I think this could really be an attraction for all ages. I think senior citizens would enjoy an afternoon here. What a wonderful facility. So come on out, Scrantonians, anybody who lives in Lackawanna County in the area, and enjoy this facility. My hat's off to Mayor Chris Doherty for making this happen. And Joe, when I went to Mayor Chris Doherty and said, let's do something for Mayor David Wenzel, I didn't know what to expect. A Republican, Democrat. Mayor Doherty, without hesitation, said, he's a hero, let's honor him. And that's a tribute to Mayor Doherty.
Well, that's true. And Mayor Doherty in his remarks had stated and talked about some of the sponsors that he put together that he went to and some of his cabinet people went to make this happen.
Right.
And it is just, it's beyond words to describe what a magnificent facility this is. And you had touched on it. It's really, it's for everybody. It's for children, it's for adults, it's for the able-bodied, it's for the disabled. It's equal access and equal opportunity for all the citizens that come to Naog Park, whether they're from Scranton or northeastern Pennsylvania or from out of the area.